Right. Today is the 6th, 12 days of fountain pens. And we are here with Stephanie, Steph, and she's going to be doing a wonderful, wonderful talk because I see that a lot of people are interested. We have 70 participants today, which is great. And we have been sponsored by Robert Oster. It gave us this wonderful citrus ink. I'm going to be giving away 3 bottles again today. You guys know the email. You have to send the email. It's 12 days of fountain pens at bemed.io. Please, if you want the ink, don't send an email again because I'm just going to have to delete your email. We are also sponsored by Dance Pens, which gave this wonderful pen to be given in the quiz. Is a Vanagram. It's an amazing pen, beautiful, beautiful pen. The resin is just stunning. Wonderful nib, by the way. And we have this Lalex Sterling Silver, donated by Grammy Pens, also for the quiz. You guys gonna enjoy. Whoever wins one of these pens, I'm pretty sure is gonna be very, very happy. And we also have some sad news to give to everyone. So our friend and colleague from the Fountain Pens UK group, Dave Coronas, passed yesterday. He was battling cancer for 2 years, and we're gonna pay him respects, and gonna do 2 minutes of silence. Okay, if you want to pray, you can pray. If you want to be silent, you can be silent. Just everyone think of whatever interactions you had with him. I had many. I guess many of you had as well. Right. Right. So, yes, just answer the question, yes, you have to send an email every time because I delete all the emails apart from the winners. So you have to send an email every day unless you won, because I'm not gonna give you another bottle of ink. So, okay. Steph, we are ready for you. You can unmute yourself. Can I, let me see if it's working out.
Hello.
Yes, excellent. Please.
Good.
Welcome, Steph. And
thank you. Okay, so I was really pleased when Bernardo asked me to give a presentation on fountain pen ink, because I really love it. I'm no expert, but I definitely enjoy learning about it, the properties of the different inks, the way it reacts, the different makers, what you can do with it. So a little bit about my background, how I got into fountain pens and fountain pen ink. I used fountain pen at school, and I originally had a Schaefer, don't know what type, and the barrel split, so I ended up with a Parker 25. I don't know whether or not I actually broke the barrel deliberately, because I still have memories of the lip on the grip section leaving white indents in my fingers. But I obviously had a much better experience with the Parker 25, because lots of years later, and about 4 years ago, I was looking at different types of notebook systems and things, and I came across the Traveller's Notebook, and joined a few Facebook groups to do with it, and they were talking about different fountain pens, and particularly the Kaweco Sport and the Pilot Metropolitan and the TWSBI Eco. So I bought the Sport and the Eco, and for the Sport I bought lots and lots of cartridges, lots of J. Herbin ones, because, well, they were in those cute little metal tins. And I also heard about Robert Oyster, and somebody did a sample of Bondi Blue. So I bought a white TWSBI Eco and put Bondi Beach in it. And I actually haven't, Bondi Blue in it, and I actually haven't ever taken it out of that pen since then. It's just a gorgeous, shady, beautiful colour. So that's always inked. And I was absolutely thrown by the fact I just spent 30 quid on a pen and £15 on a bottle of ink, and that was the most extravagant thing you could possibly do. Yeah, little did I know. So yeah, so that was it then. That was me down the wormhole. So I thought initially I'd start off by sort of talking about the different types of ink that there are, which just sort of vaguely, but particularly I was trying to come across an ink, or think of an ink that was just ink, that just sort of writes and it doesn't shade and it's not particularly. And the only thing I came up with, and I'm probably wrong, the only bottle I had was Schaefer Blue, and I just thought, that's an ink. It's not really anything, it's just an ink. So that's kind of where you can start. The next stage that people normally want in their journey is probably a waterproof ink. Now that has moved on from there, and there are lots and lots of different varieties. Obviously Noodlers, most of those are pretty bulletproof, and you have your carbon blacks, platinum, etc. I personally really like Studio 5 inks. Their black is very black, and they have a really nice shady couple of colours as well. I'm enjoying now the sketch inks at the moment, because whilst they are waterproof. They're not really dry, and I've had really good effect with them keeping working out of the pen. And again, it shades really beautifully. So I also, the next property in an ink, and personally my favourite, is Shady Inks. And they are, I don't know how much you can actually see on the screen, but the example that I've given is Vinta Mascara, because that sort of, it shades, I don't know how well you can see any of that, but it shades in the way that you write. So basically shading means that the ink pulls in interesting ways, so you get light bits and dark bits, and it's just interesting on the page. The main thing that I like about the mascara is that in addition to you getting the lovely shading, it also gives you multicolours, so you get blue and purple as in not just a one colour paint, and that's as you're writing as well. The next variety is Sheening Ink. So that's an ink that you can sit down, and generally they're quite wet, and generally they never dry. No, some of them do, but they do take time to. One of my favourites, and I really hope you can see this, is it's actually a Krishna Ring, which you see at night, and that is a really deep dark teal, and it has the most beautiful burgundy colour on top of it. If you want to see anything more closely, drop me a message and I'll send you pictures, or I'm happy to put a post on the group. So yeah, so Sheening Ink goes down in one colour and it'll reflect another colour, and predominantly they are reddy colours that sheen on top, or greeny colours that sheen, different varieties of through the colours, but that seems to be sort of the law of it. You can get Shimmer Inks, which are basically beautiful glittery inks, and I've got a couple of examples of these. And again, if you can see, these are both got a gold sheen, but the Herbin one is that's Stormy Grey, and that one is, it's just so much more subtler, whereas the Robert Oster is just, it's just in your face gold on top of the red. That was one of the colours we included in the Inkmas box, which I'll talk about the Ink Club later on. So, and then scented ink. I also, we don't have smell-o-vision, but one of the scented inks I've got is the, I can't pronounce that, it's the chocolate one, and that is absolutely, and it really does smell of chocolate. It's lovely to write with. You also get crossovers from there. So, for example, Emma, which we talked about earlier, and as I explained, that one not only is waterproof, but it shades. And then another ink, which I really love at the moment, and unfortunately I have no idea how to pronounce, but it's Vinta Piloncitos. But that one is a shimmer and a shade, and it's really beautiful. So the other thing that we talk about when we're talking about different types of ink is whether or not it's a wet or a dry ink. And I wish it was as simple as saying that this manufacturer manufactures dry inks and this manufacturer manufactures wet inks, because it's totally not. And it, as I'm sure you're all aware, it's completely dependent on the pen that you put it in, the nib that's in there, the paper that you then write on. But there are a couple of tips and tricks for making the ink a little bit wetter when you're using it. One of the things that you can do is add some distilled water, and that will it can do a couple of things. It can make the ink a little bit wetter. It does tend to lower the saturation or the pigment of the ink, obviously, because you're adding plain water, but it can also mean that it actually makes the ink a little bit shady. So there's a little bit of that you can do. There are additives that you can get. This one isn't available in the UK, but it's White Lightning. And this is a very popular one, and you put the tiniest little bit of it in ink, and it really does increase the flow. And then the other one, which I don't recommend any of these. I'm not guaranteeing any of them. But the other one, which I have tried as well personally, is putting a tiny drop of very liquid into the ink, and that seems to give you a much better flow as well. So I replaced that pencil with a fountain. Okay, so from there, what I was going to talk about is obviously we all collect inks. The best way of storing ink. The only suggestion I did a bit of research on it, keep it in a dark place, ideally a cupboard or a drawer. You don't want it in direct sunlight because it can affect not only the properties of the ink, but the colours of the ink. So, and also when you're actually changing the ink, be careful not to contaminate your ink bottle. So if you're actually filling your ink via your converter by dipping it, you need to make sure that your pen's already very clean. Apart from Twisbies and things like that, if I've got a converter, I always use a syringe because it's cleaner, apart from anything else, in my opinion. So that's a really easy way of doing it. And I did bring up a couple of ideas for storing things. So lots of samples go about. So your little test tube rack is very handy, and that holds 40 samples of ink. And I think these ones I got off Amazon, but you can get them off Fleabay. And then my favourite hack is from Poundland, and this is actually a nail varnish holder. And it holds the Domain little bottles perfectly. So that's storage. Yeah, so the other thing I thought I'd show you, because I think ink isn't always, well, ink is always about ink, but there are other things that possibly push you to actually purchase a bottle. So I don't have loads of really interesting bottles, I have to say, but I've got a couple. So I thought I'd show you. A basic one that I've got is actually the standard Waterman bottle. And that's quite cool because you put it like that, then you can put your pen in and get to the ink and fill your pens easier. But I think that's quite a cool design. The other one, which I think, and I do think Lamy in general get passed over quite a lot, but their standard bottle, this is the limited edition petrol, but their standard bottle, it's got a little roll in there of blotting paper, which I think is quite cool. And the other thing is, if you snap that off, you can actually see that it's very cleverly designed so that you can fill your pen right to the bottom of the actual bottle, which I think is very clever. Of the bottles that you can, this is a new bottle to me, this is a new brand to me, 3 Oysters, and the ink itself, it's a lovely colour, it's a lovely teal colour, but it is quite a ink. It doesn't really shade or do anything particularly interesting. But the bottle, if you look at the bottle, it's just standard square, but it just has a tiny little cutout. So it just balances on its side like that. And I just think that's so clever. I just really like that. So that's that one. I also have, I do have the limited edition Krishna bottle, which again, I don't know if you've seen this one, but you can pour it into there and then just dip your nib into there, and that stands quite interestingly. It's a lovely bottle, but it's style over substance. And oh, I've also got an Akerman bottle. It's empty. I haven't managed to get any of the ink, but I did manage to borrow a bottle. So this actually has a marble inside. So effectively, when the lid's on, you can do that. The ink goes in here, and then the marble becomes your stopper, and you can just dip your pen in and pull your ink up from there. And then finally, it's got to be mentioned, hasn't it? The Mont Blanc shoe. And this one, again, because of the design of the hump there, when it gets low, you can just pour the ink and it sits in this little reservoir here so that you can dip your pen in and use it there. So, yeah, so that was a little bit about bottles. The next thing I was going to talk about, because it's actually become a really big part of my hobby, is actually swatching and cataloguing the ink as well. So I'll show you how I do it. I do use colouring books, and I have a couple of these. This one is just blues and teals, basically. Because that's my favourite colour. But I kind of am at a point where I've committed to this. There are lots of people who use swatch books and things like that and come up with some lovely effects. But I kind of committed to the idea. I'll show you a Sheening Ink. So I came up with the idea that I was going to do my square, I was going to write it, and then when I actually put it in a fountain pen, I left space that I could actually write it underneath. So I have samples of the pens writing each one. In practice, it's not really big enough to do that. So, but it gives me a good little idea, and I keep it by colour because I tend to think, I want to put blue in this pen, or I want to put red in this pen, so I can go in and have a look at it. I then have, as a backup to that, my Excel spreadsheet, because we all love an Excel spreadsheet. And I simply have a list by brand. I also then list the colour, and then I list whether or not I've got a bottle or a sample of it, what colour group it sits in, because again, I like to be able to search by colour group. I do have, then I've got two more little, one is available for swap. So if I've only got a sample of it, I can't swap it with somebody else. But if I've got a bottle of it, I'm more than happy to swap it. But it means I can just search by swap, and also by whether or not I've used it. So whether or not I've actually put it in a fountain pen. And I don't want to show you how many of them actually say no next to them. They've all been swatched, and so they've all been dip penned, but not all of them have made it into a fountain pen. So that's how I do it. As I say, there's lots and lots of ideas on things like well, on all the social media things, how they do them. And as I say, I've seen some people do some lovely swatch books. And actually, that sort of brings us on to specific ink-based things that we do in group. So the first thing I'll talk about, which is actually a good resource to have a look at, that how people swatch their inks and the way different people do them, is that this year we ran Octo Ink, named by Bernardo. It was a little bit of a play on Inktober, and what we did was we actually there were a few people who had a couple of days, but the majority were every day somebody within the group picked their favourite ink, and they put up an example of that and told us what type of paper they put it on, what pen they used with it, and it just meant that you can have a look at it and see what it looked like. And then other people, if they had the same ink, they would comment and show what it looked like on a different piece of paper with a different fountain pen, which is quite nice. And we got some really lovely examples, and some, as I say, it's really, if you search Octo Inking group. There's some really lovely inks on there and some really good examples of how to swatch inks and things. And then the other thing was within the group, and it wasn't necessarily, I don't think it was organised, it just sort of happened, was that suddenly lots and lots of people started swapping ink. So we were all sending samples to each other desperately, going, try this and look at this. And it was lovely. So back in October, one of my fountain pen buddies, Jim Blackburn, had the idea of actually setting up an affiliated fountain pen group with myself and Apurva, and we basically, with the idea that, well, there's a couple of things that we do specifically in group. General conversation about ink still stays in the main group because we all love ink, but specifically, we set it up with the idea that we were going to actually do like a group buy, so we could buy samples of inks that you can't normally get your hands on because they're out of the country and the postage is too expensive, or one bottle's 30 quid, and that's a lot really when you could buy, or maybe you just buy one colour of it and you'd like to try all of the colours. So we set that up in October and we did our first group buy, and we did 6 samples in that one. November and December melded into one, and that was an interesting one to do because we weren't. Jim came up with the idea that we would actually, instead of going off it was 12 days, but we'd actually turn those 12 days into pieces of artwork and use that as the bouncing board to actually select the inks that we were going to use or put into the collection. So that's what we did. And so, for example, the A Partridge in a Pear Tree, the piece of artwork that we used was Tree in Blossom by Van Gogh, and that's got just gorgeous colours and and undertones, and that was actually where we used that Vinter colour. That was the colour that we picked out of there. But the brilliant thing about this box was that in addition to having lots and lots of different palettes, there was actually it gave us the opportunity to actually do a group buy from Malaysia. So ordinarily, if you were to go to buy ink from Malaysia, the postage is either incredibly expensive, or the minimum buy for your to get free postage is very high. But when you're buying lots of bottles of ink, because we actually did nearly 40 people participated in the Inkmas box. We managed to do that. So we had a limited edition pilot ink in there, one of their 100th anniversaries. We had 2 Domain special store only editions in there, which were really, really beautiful. We had the Colourverse collaboration with Opus 88. We managed to include that in there, and lots of lovely inks. In addition to the inks, there's some extra cool things. So Apurva actually she actually puts the extras together, and we have an ink club sticker every month, and we have a few, to be honest, and a note card. And in our Inkmas box we had a really gorgeous Christmas card, which is obviously made of fountain pen ink. So that was really lovely. Jim curates a letter for us and explains to us exactly why we've picked the inks, what the properties of the inks are, all the nerdy stuff about ink, which again is brilliant. And then yes, and we put it together and we put in the swatch card, which showed you all the inks as well and explained it. And actually, this is how nerdy we are, or Jim is, But Jim actually also went so far, which is dip pen only, but he actually made some oak gall ink as well, which we included in the box. So it's just an interesting way of, it was just different because of Christmas. But ordinarily, we have the Fountain Pen UK Ink Club, and we every month we actually have a vote. So there'll have been different types of ink mentioned in the group during the month, and what we do is we actually put a vote up to say, what are you most interesting, what do you enjoy, what do you want to try, and the product that wins we will then put together a group buy on. It's not something that you can subscribe to every month because we're not making any money out of this. We're doing it purely because we love ink. And what that means is it varies, because some companies do 30ml bottles and some companies do 40ml bottles and whatnot. And what that means is and what that means is that it varies the amount of people that we need. We always need a minimum number to buy into it so that it can go ahead, and then we have to fill the same again. As I said, for Inkmas, we did go for about 40 people. That was a lot of work. So generally speaking, it will probably be about 20 people, but we'll put it up in the group. People can have a look. You haven't got to join in every month, but it just means you get to try a group of different inks every month and things that maybe you wouldn't ordinarily. And that's about it, really. So, yeah. Have we got any questions? Did I talk really quickly?
No, it was a bit quick. It was wonderful. It's been wonderful. If you guys have any questions, you can ask, raise your hand. Ryan already is raising his hand. John, I can tell you that I'm gonna post on the weekend. I'm gonna post pictures of the exquisite bottles that I have. Shakespeare Red and some other rarities.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't got a huge amount of those. I'm getting into the quality over quantity, but so much ink, so little time.
Yep. Right. Ryan, can you ask your question, please?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Ah, cool.
Hello.
So how many inks do you have and how long have you been collecting? And I have another question as well.
Okay. So am I allowed to include samples, Bernardo?
It's your count.
Okay, so in my actual collection of ink that I could fill a pen with tomorrow, I have 261. But 121 of those are actual bottles.
Pretty good going. Not as many as I expected.
And I've been collecting properly probably for about 3 years.
Have you also, my second question is, have you thought about designing your own ink or your own ink bottle?
Not in the slightest. I would have a go though.
I mean, with your line of work, your day job, I think you definitely should give it a whirl, designing an ink bottle.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between designing AHU systems and an ink bottle, but yeah, no, maybe.
Hey, we do design our.
I'd say yes.
We do design our inks every year.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah, that's the third one is Teal Breaker.
Yeah, actually, is that the third?
Yeah.
I missed the first one. What was the first one?
Scribble Purple and Mombodo's Hat.
Oh, of course, yeah, no.
They came together.
We did those in 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, Mombodo's Hat is an ink club designed ink.
It's from Fountain Pens UK.
No way.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
Aha.
Yeah, I've got it in my V16. So yeah, love
Excellent.
it. Cool.
Excellent. Go on, John. You can ask your question.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say thanks for the talk, Stephanie. Really interesting. Thank you for that. It was excellent. I was just going to say, do you use inkswatch.com? Or I think there's like, is there something like fpcompanion.com? Well, you know, these are basically like community services, so that everybody sort of either lists their swatches or lists their inks. So instead of everybody having a little mini Excel database or Airtable or whatever, you know, I think this fpcompanion.com that kind of allows you just to list everything you've got. And inkswatch.com, I don't know whether you've seen that website, but that's a couple of fairly well-known people in the US who are basically just putting their swatches online, you know, and I think that's quite good actually.
I've not seen either of those, to be perfectly honest. If I'm looking at ink, I either ask in group if it's something specific, or Mountain of Ink is probably the other thing that I use.
Yeah.
Because I think they photograph their ink really well. The other one I'll use actually is Goulet, but obviously.
Yeah. No, have a look at inkswatch.com. It's quite good actually.
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
Cool. That was it. Thanks.
Sarah, you can ask your question.
Hi, everybody. My question is, when you are looking at all these inks and all these samples and you've got such a large collection, how do you resist not buying a pen for every ink and just keeping them all inked all the time? Because every time I get a new sample, I just want to put it in something straight away. I'm really impatient.
I think that goes back to the list that I've got where it says no, I haven't actually put it in a pen. I'm getting quite good at knowing what I like fountain pen wise. I've made some mistakes. I've sold some. I've given some away, and I'm sort of I'm okay with my collection. I know what I want to add to it. It's not done. But and to be fair, there are several pens within that collection that I literally will never put another ink in. As I said, my Twisby, that has always had the Bondi blue in it. I've also, my JG6 has got Sailor Riku. I did realise this when I was trying to prepare for my presentation. I don't say these words out loud normally to anybody who know what they really sound like. So my pronunciation is probably terrible. But this has got Sailor Rikusha in. And that's because this is like olive and brown and just I've got the venom, and it's and it's just it is. I don't know if you'll see, but they really have the same sort of properties. They're really so that will never have anything else in it. I have a small collection of limited edition Lamy All Stars, and they all have their the correct, well, nearly the correct ink. The bronze ink was, so that's actually got the orange, the copper. Was it orange copper? I don't have the pen for it anyway. So, but I do have the ink, so that's in there. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, Simon, please ask your question.
Hi there, how are you doing?
Hello.
Thanks very much for your talk. I wondered if you talk a bit more about iron gallings, or because I've got a bunch of KWZ iron gallings, but I keep on getting a bit nervous. Also, I'm not very good at cleaning pens, so, and I'm not sure, I might just have to, maybe iron gallings aren't for me if I'm going to leave them in my pen. That's...
I don't have a huge amount, and in fact, I'm not sure. The one I was talking about was actually a homemade pen, which was an oak gall ink made, aka like Henry VIII would. My understanding of iron gall inks is that, I don't know, maybe you want to take that one, Bernardo. I don't know a lot about them.
some iron gall inks, they can rust and clog, but they can, and also depending on the quality of your nib, i.e. Jinhao nibs, they can get corroded as well. Steel nibs, some of them can get corroded.
I'll add to that a little bit, Bernardo.
Hi, Jim.
Hi.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Jim's the guy who made the ink.
I researched it a little bit when I made the iron gall ink at home this year. Iron gall and oak gall are kind of interchangeable. They're an old recipe. The basic issue with a lot of these iron gall inks is that they use reactive ions to then change the color of natural pigments. So you end up with a toxic combination of both usually quite pronounced pHs, so quite extreme pHs, so down to sort of 3.5 to 4 if you're going for an acid-based iron gall ink, as well as the risk of some of the chemicals that you add to get the color changes causing pigmentation. So you get this kind of toxic combination of a relatively acidic ink that could damage the acrylics in your pen. Certainly older pens and rubber ink sacs are quite at risk from them. And then, as Bernardo says, it's the acidity as well as some of the chemicals you add that can then cause corrosion on alloy-based metals. So as a very good rule of thumb, ink up a pen with a generous feed so you get lots of flow and the pigment doesn't block it, and then give it a really good washout pretty quickly after using it. So I put my homemade stuff, which I filtered quite diligently, into a TWSBI Eco, which is about as bomb-proof a pen as you can find, and it's still clogged up after about 4 days of being left lying around. I did manage to salvage it, but if a TWSBI Eco is going to get destroyed after 4 days with some iron gall ink in it, then you probably need to be careful with them. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, so I guess then what is a permanent ink option other than, what's your favorite permanent ink in that case?
I'm really enjoying the see, this is another R&K. Can I just go with R&K?
Yeah.
They're ink sketch inks, because actually they're sketch inks, because they are, I've got it. I have actually been nervous about it, and I've got it in a 992. But even I didn't set this up at all. It does just write straight out the back, this here. So I haven't had any issues with them drying in the pen at all. And it really shades beautifully, and I really like that in an ink.
That's great. I'll have to give that a go in my Eco.
For a permanent black, I would definitely recommend Sailor Kiwaguru or Platinum Carbon Black.
But you really have to be careful with cleaning your pens with those, right?
To be honest, Platinum is the best one of those because the particles are less likely to clog your pen. I have one pen, my heirloom pen, which is my first heirloom pen, which is the Lamy 2000 my wife gifted me when I graduated, and is with Platinum Carbon Black ever since, and it's been 6 years.
The only thing I don't like about I like the Platinum Carbon Black, apart from it's just not quite black enough. So the one that I've been using recently, which I can't remember where I bought it. It was in Europe that I got it from. Jim pointed me at that as well. He's a very bad influence. Is Studio 5, and that one is blacker. I like that, and I've had no problem with that so far.
Yeah,
again,
I'd second that. Studio 5 are fantastic permanent inks. They're really good, aren't they? They're really shady and really interesting as well. The other ink I would draw people to for permanent ones, and I would thank Emile de Souza for this one, is Noodler's X Feather Black, which once it's dry is waterproof, and you can pretty much write on toilet paper with it, and it still doesn't bleed. It's amazing stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's not.
But on good paper, it's not good.
Incredibly durable.
Right,
on good paper, that ink is not good. I don't like that ink for good paper. I have a bottle of it, and I have inked it like 5 pens tops in the last 5 years. It's really like it's an ink to write in crap paper.
I I don't know. I haven't got a huge amount of noodles. I've got a few noodlers in my collection, but the ones that I've tried are they're what I describe as ink. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing particularly interesting in the way that they behave on paper. So tomorrow night, Nick Stewart is doing his presentation on using fountain pen ink for art and things, which is the other thing that I'm interested in. So whilst I do write every day in fountain pens, and I am not going back to it any other way, the other thing I like to do is use them for art, the inks for art as well. So
that's great. Right, Andrew, please ask your question.
Well, thank you ever so much for your wonderful talk tonight, Steph. It's been absolutely fantastic, and showcasing those amazing bottles was fantastic, to be honest. My question is there a particular continent or country which interests you for their inks in general? If so, what is that draw?
I'm sorry, I missed part of that.
Oh, sorry. I'll repeat that. Is there a particular continent or country which has a draw to you in terms of fountain pen inks? If so, and why?
At the moment, where did Troublemaker and Vinter come from?
Philippines.
Philippines. Yeah, Philippines at the moment. Vinter ink. I haven't even got my hands on any Troublemaker, unfortunately, but I keep drooling over it when I see other people's. I know. I keep drooling over it. I keep drooling.
I'm not going to show you my bottles then.
But the Vinter inks are just incredible. The mascara that we talked about earlier, I did pull a couple of samples. Just look at that. It's just, wow. Yeah, it's like, oh. So yeah, at the end of the day, the Philippines at the moment are definitely the place.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're on mute, Bernardo.
Oh, I muted myself because I'm a good man, so. No, please ask your question.
I think you can hear me now, right?
Hiya.
Yes.
Okay, hi. Thank you so much for the lovely talk. Just quickly back to the topic of permanent inks. I don't have an expansive experience with permanent inks, but the ones I've tried have always been badly behaved. Sketch inks I've found, actually I haven't found, I have been told, are particularly dry. I've tried the Atramentis document inks. They are very badly behaved for me, the way they feather, and apparently the medium of the ink is different. So just to cut a long story short, do you recommend any particular permanent ink which you find particularly wet and well behaved in the sense that it doesn't bleed or feather, and which is not let's say a peculiar kind of chemistry, like for example iron gold, and it doesn't smell like vanilla?
It doesn't. Do you not like vanilla? I haven't used a huge amount of waterproof inks. I hadn't even really until COVID hit. And again, it was one of those things where you were looking at different ways to communicate with your friends and your family and stuff. And I started sending postcards again, like just because it was easy to just make a note, drop it in the postbox, funny things, do you know what I mean? And then it was something like, oh my God, what if this feathers or gets wet or whatever? I already had the platinum carbon black because I used it for sketching but wasn't happy with it. Then I picked up a couple of the Studio 5s. I'd probably say have a go with the Studio 5, to be honest, because I think they're really well behaved and lovely. They shade, yeah. And then other than that, the only other waterproof ones I've used are the sketch inks, which I haven't found really dry.
Okay, interesting. Do you think it might be the pen then that they kind of behave differently in different pens?
Oh, is it? Yeah, they do, don't they? Though you can have somebody who goes, "This is really wet and juicy," and somebody else who goes, "No, it's not."
I'll give those a try.
And various variations in batches. I've used about. I've only got one bottle, but I've been sent a couple of samples of the sketch ink. So I've used 3 different colours, and I haven't found a problem with any of them.
If I can follow up on the same,
I'll send you some, Emma.
since you said something, like we can make another question. Do you usually find yourself testing inks from different batches? I've had one experience with Manuel Sailor. I've probably become famous on the group because of it.
Yes,
different batches were very different, for me at least. So what's your opinion on different batches?
I personally, the only one I've got experience of different batches on, and that's through the Ink Club, is Krishna. And that, I'm just looking for a photograph to show you, because I did. We bought 6 bottles of one Krishna Ink, because obviously they're small, aren't they? So one of the inks, but can you see that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly the same ink, same label, everything, but one's purple and one's blue.
Okay.
And we know Krishna has that variation, but we forgive it because it's cheap and has some wonderful, wonderful colours and does some amazing things. But that's the only personal experience I've had of differences in batches, if you like.
Thank you. They do actually make one of my favorite inks, which is Elegant Teal.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the camera because I had to switch on to the phone. But yeah, thank you so much for your answers.
No problem. Thank you.
Cool beans. Apurva, please ask your question.
Hey Steph, ink is such a difficult subject to talk about, isn't it? It can vary from nib to nib, pen to pen, paper to paper.
Totally.
But thank you for the information as well. And my question was actually Noah stole it, so I'm going to hold a grudge against him. But I was going to ask you about the different batches. So my experience was actually with Apache Sunset. So it was an ink that I was searching for ages, and Joe from the group, who actually shared with me an Apache Sunset that he had, but he had a really red version of it. And then eventually when I got my own bottle, it was actually really orange. So it's crazy how many brands you can have that's such a variation of it. So my question was actually, have you found a brand that's consistent? So I don't know if you've ever read about any inks that have always been badly behaved, or I mean, we mentioned Krishna, we both experienced that. So
I think Krishna is one that is particularly renowned for it. Well, for behaving in lots of different ways, isn't it? But as I say, I think it is forgivable because they do some just. One of my favourite inks, which I showed earlier, was the Sea at Night, and it is just the most gorgeous. It looks, you're writing with it and it just looks black, and then it hits the light and it's just got this amazing teal sheen that is just incredible. And I mean, that was the other thing with ink for me was my job. I have to be quite professional, and I'm in meetings with people and expected to write in quite sort of blue and black, and it was like, how can I make this more interesting for myself? So but yeah, I think Domain are probably a very, very reliable ink, to be honest. I've never heard anybody say a bad word about them. And they have all sorts of varieties and things.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask a question? My question is, it seems that you don't have much experience with noodlers. I have so many problems with Noodler's inks because so many that I've vowed never to buy their inks again.
I just learned really quickly.
I'm making, you know, I'm sharing samples with anyone that wants, because I'm really disappointed with them. There's no consistency apart from Heart of Darkness. They are not consistent at all.
Right.
I bought a bottle of 54 Massachusetts, and it's a wonderful blue-black.
Mine's purple.
Yeah, see? And the second bottle is green.
Wow.
See?
Yeah, no, I was so disappointed.
Yeah. That's but again, Noodler is a one-man show, so
I think that's why I like to swatch and actually have my own record of what things look like and compare in my own head.
I do that as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Any more questions before we wrap up?
I've not kept up with the chat at all.
I forgot to do the draw for today.
Oh, yes.
Oh dear. You guys sent me emails, right?
I've got a question, if that's all right.
Sure.
You've told us that Bondi Blue is your go-to favourite.
One of them, yeah.
What's the ink you've tried that you've just hated the moment you used it?
Oh. I
love all of them, clearly.
Possibly. There is an answer, but I think I possibly blocked it from my brain. When I got my Sailor Pro Gear Slim, and I put the ink in, and I immediately changed it. And I honestly can't remember what I put in there, but I did. It just, I think actually that goes back to the fact that ink works differently however you use it. So it was not happy in that pen. It didn't do it for me at all. But actually, if I then go and put it in a TWSBI or my Pilot VP or something, it might be a completely different experience. So I can't dismiss it, but it wasn't the right experience in that pen, definitely not. And I do just like colour. Shade.
Colour is the thing that got me onto fountain pens, because I absolutely despise blue and black ballpoints, and the minute I discovered fountain pens, this world of colour opened up, and it was like, oh, I don't have to write in blue and black anymore without the despicable gel pen thing. It was just
yes,
a world opened up. It was just eye-opening.
Yes. Okay, Steph, I'm gonna message you the winners. Any more questions?
Nick's got his hand up.
Okay, go on, Nick. Ask a question.
Sorry I was a bit late, but I had things to do. Strange thing, in Melbourne, there's an advert, an old advert, and it says something about so much we'll make with so much water will make so much ink. So one time, was it available in a powder or a concentrate?
I'm fairly sure it was. I was going to do some research into a little bit of the basic history and stuff, to give a little bit of a presentation. It's really difficult because to know where to come from, what angle to come from. But yeah, I'm sure you can still. I know you can certainly buy the dip pens and things like that. You can buy pigments that you just add to water and things that do. So yeah, I'm sure at some point.
Yes. They made ink pellets for people to take it to war, World War I and II. There are many issues. There are on the fountain pen network. There were many examples of that. From time to time, you see in our group as well examples of people posting pictures of finding that. That there's a guy, Stilo. I forgot this is the name that he goes by. He's a vintage pen collector. He has a million Mont Blancs like that I never seen, and sometimes he shows pictures of the ink pellets and powders as well.
Thank you.
Have you messaged me, or are you doing that?
Messaging.
Okay. Did you all enter? Are you all excited? Ah.
Really, really, serious.
I'm really pleased.
Unbelievable.
Jim Blackburn.
You can say it. Come on, Jim.
Yeah. Jim is our first winner.
Okay.
Mick McGinney. They're gonna think it's a fake. This is my actual
It's not, because people have been seeing that every day, and it's not.
And another great one, Anne Steele.
Yay.
And we all say, Alexa, Anne won.
Everyone says, Alexa, play Baby Shark. Right, with that one, please, guys, you that won, send me an email or a Facebook message with your address so I can send you the inks. And with that one, thank you very much, Steph. It was a wonderful, wonderful
that was great.
talk.
That was great.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Cheers,
so
guys.
I'll see you guys
Take
tomorrow.
Hey guys.
Be safe,
And
people.
Take care.
I'll see you guys tomorrow, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.